everyone, and welcome back to the Science Corner. We're still studying rocks. Do you remember what we call a person who studies rocks? Right, a geologist. So come on, geologists, let's grab our kit and get started. Grab your list of supplies. Today we're looking at Part 2, River Rocks by Size. You will need your science notebook, and if I grab that, I need my pencil, your Pebbles, Sand, and Silt book, your set of rock mixture, that's the one with the gravel in the bottom and the sand. You will need your sand, gravel, and pebbles mat from your paper resources. So I'm going to grab my paper resources, and I'm going to look for that mat. I'm just going to pull it out. It looks like this. And I can put my paper resources back in. Then I might also want tape, and I'm going to need a container. So I'm just going to grab one of my containers, and if you collected sand from our very first experiment where we were rubbing rocks together and you have it in a vial, go ahead and grab that too. You can put your resources back in. You will also need a spoon. So go ahead and take your spoon and take your river rocks and just take a spoonful of river rocks out and put it in your container. Try to make sure you have some pebbles, sand, and gravel in there. Once you have it in there, you can put your spoon back and you can put your river rocks back too. And then move your basket over. So today we're going to be sorting our rocks by size again, but we're not going to use our screens. How else might we be able to sort rocks by size? Right, remember what we did last time with our pebbles? We used our fingers to pick them apart? We could do that. So take your science notebook and open it to our next page. It looks like this. We're going to make our hypothesis. So we're going to say what we're going to do, and what we're going to do is sort our rocks by size. If we sort our rocks by size, that's what we're going to do. Now we need to say how we're going to do it by using our fingers. Now we need to say what we think will happen. I think we're going to be able to do it. We will be successful. Successful means that you did it and you were able to do it correctly. How else might we be able to do it? Take a look at your sheet. Did you notice that at the bottom it has little tiny squares? What do you think those squares are for? What would happen if we took a rock and we set it inside those squares? Would it fit? It might fit in some of them. So we're going to use these squares to help us compare the size of our different rocks. We're going to put the rocks in the square, and if it fits in the square, then it goes in the circle. So I'm going to add to my hypothesis, we can compare our rocks to the squares. I'm going to erase the period and write, by comparing our rocks to the squares. Okay. So now I'm going to take my container, and it just has a spoonful of dirt on it, and I'm going to very carefully dump it onto this paper. make sure it all goes on the paper. And I'm going to sort my rocks. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to compare it to the smallest square, because I can see the arrows are telling me to go the other way. So anything that fits in this little one is going to be sand. And it's kind of easy to tell with just my fingers. I'm going to try and make sure I get all of the little tiny rocks out. Oops, move some of my gravel. Okay, now I'm going to compare it to my gravel square. Okay, some of my gravel I think is still sand, so I'm going to move it in there. And then my pieces, I have 3 pieces that won't fit, so these are going to be my pebbles. Okay, so now I have my groups sorted, and could I sort them within their group? Remember when we were using the screens? We had 2 groups of pebbles and 2 groups of gravel. Can we do that? We sure can. Grab your pencil, draw a line down the middle of each one. And then you can sort them by big or little. And since I want my biggest to be on the very end, I'm going to do little pebbles and big pebbles. And I'm going to do little gravel and big gravel. So let's see. So were we able to sort them into 5 different groups? We were. We have sand, little gravel, little pebbles, big pebbles. So grab your notebook and let's look at our page. It says river rocks by size. How else can rocks be sorted by size? Right, with your fingers. You can pick them apart by comparing them to the bottom. So now I'm going to grab my tape, and I want to tape a little bit of each one into my notebook. If you want to, you can as well. I don't think I'm going to tape the pebbles in because then my notebook won't shut, but if you want to tape a couple pebbles in, that's fine. I'm going to take a piece off of my tape. I'm going to dip just the middle of it into the sand, because I want to do the sand first, and then I'm going to tape it into my book in the sand, just like that. Then I'm going to do the same for the gravel. And since I have the gravel in 2 parts, I could do 2 parts on here. So I'm going to draw my 2 lines. Gravel. Whoa, it got stuck. Gravel. And then for my pebbles, since I'm not going to tape them in, I'm just going to draw a really quick picture. I have a little pebble and I have a big pebble. Okay. There we go. Now I'm going to fix my paper since I got my tape stuck to it. And I want to use my sand that I made from rubbing my 2 rocks together. So I know this should be sand. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to compare it to my paper. But I'm going to be really careful not to mix it in with the other sand because I want to keep this sand and I'm going to tape it into my book. Yes, this is really, really fine. It's very, very tiny. I'm going to take my tape. I'm going to stick it in. And I'm going to tape it on. That's that's the sand from my volcano rocks. And I have a little bit more, so I think I'm going to tape in a little bit more. Now let's clean up before we do our reading. First thing I'm going to put away is my rocks, because they'll be the messiest. So I'm going to take my rocks on the paper, and I'm just going to dump them back in. I'm going to put my paper back in with my paper packet. I'm going to keep my pencil because we're not done. I'm going to put the lid back on the vial and put that back in. My container can go back in. And I can move my tape. And I can move this out of the way. Now grab your Pebbles, Sand, and Silt book and open it to page 14 and 15. The Story of Sand. Follow along in your book as I read. The Story of Sand. While we're reading this book, you can take notes in your notebook, and then we're going to fill out this page. So keep your notebook handy. The Story of Sand. Have you ever looked at one grain of sand and thought, I wonder how it got so small? A grain of sand wasn't always so small. It might have once been part of a boulder. The boulder could have broken off a mountain. The boulder could have tumbled down the mountain. Look at all these rocks that fell off this mountain. Maybe the boulder rolled into a river. Water in a river can move rocks. The rocks bumped together in the water. The boulder might have broken into cobbles and pebbles. Cobbles are bigger than pebbles. Maybe the river carried the pebbles to the ocean. Ocean waves crash over pebbles. The pebbles might have broken into gravel. Pebbles are bigger than gravel. I'm seeing a pattern. We're having our rock get smaller and smaller as it goes, and is telling us all the different sizes from the biggest a mountain to the smallest. Wonder where we'll end. Do you think we'll end at sand? Maybe. Wind and water move and rub rocks together. Over time, rocks break apart. They can get smaller and smaller. They can break into very tiny rocks. This is called weathering. These tiny rocks are grains of sand. Look how beautiful this sand is. Compare sand from different places. Corpus Christi, Texas. Dawson City, Texas. So these are both in Texas, but they look very different, don't they? Green Sands Bay, Hawaii. This sand is green. Plum Island, Massachusetts. Why do you think it's called Plum Island? Maybe because it has purple sand? Cape Hatteras National Seashore, North Carolina. Their sand kind of looks like glass. And Dick's Beach, North Carolina. Kind of looks a lot alike, doesn't it? But just a little bit different. So why do you think the sand is all different colors? Do you remember how we made different colored sand at the very beginning? We used different kinds of rocks. The different rocks made the sand different colors. So these are probably made from different kinds of rocks. Next time you build a sandcastle, think about the story of sand. Thinking about the story of sand. Put these rocks in order by size from the largest to the smallest. Sand, boulder, gravel, cobble, pebble, to tell the story of sand. So let's see. We need the largest first, so the biggest to the smallest. Let's figure out which one's the biggest. Let's go back to the beginning of the story of sand. Right here, it's in bold. A boulder is the biggest one. So the boulder is number 1. I'm going to grab my notebook because this one has the same thing. Put the rocks in order from the largest to the smallest. Boulder. What's next? Sand, gravel, cobble, or pebble? All right, our boulder tumbled down the mountain. It fell into a river. What happened in the river? The boulder might have broken into cobbles and pebbles. Cobbles are bigger than pebbles, so we have cobbles and then pebbles. Cobbles, pebbles. All right, now what's next? Ocean waves crash over pebbles. The pebbles might have broken into gravel. Gravel. And so then what's the smallest? Sand, right. Tell the story of sand in your own words. A mountain I'm going to start with my biggest and work my way down. So I'm going to start with a mountain. Breaks into a boulder. The boulder falls into a river and breaks into cobbles. The cobbles break into pebbles. The pebbles break into sand. Okay, so I have my notebook done, but I'm going to go back in my book because I wrote in my book and we need to return these, and I'm going to erase anything I wrote. So I underline largest. Make sure that you erase in your book so that way when you return it, it's nice and clean for the next person. All right, now let's go back to our hypothesis and see if we can answer it. If we sort our rocks by size, by using our fingers, we will be successful by comparing our rocks to the squares. Is that what we did? Yes. Did it work? It sure did. I can see because I have it taped into my notebook that I have different sizes, so it was successful. Yes. We were able to separate the rocks by size. All right, now let's finish cleaning up and see what we'll have for tomorrow. So I'm going to put my notebook back in, my pencil, and my book, and I'm going to get out my list of supplies to see what we have for next time. We have that we will need our science notebook, our vial of sand. So this isn't the sand that you created, it's different sand. This one is a really full vial of sand, maybe half full. Our paper plates, which are still in here. Our hand lens. My hand lens got buried. We're going to need a bowl, so you could use a bowl or you could use one of your containers. We're going to need cups, our cups. We're going to need water and a Ziploc bag. So that's what we'll be doing for next time. Thank you for joining me in the Science Corner, and keep learning.